All right, you ready? Okay, so it's Thursday, May 20th. This is the Token CEO podcast. This is episode 155. We are joined by a very special guest today. We've got Wajeeha Ahmed, who is our first CFO, which is Chief Financial Officer. I was talking to Frankie today, and I was like, Frankie, what should I ask Wajeeha? And Frankie is like, I have no clue what a CFO does. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, that's probably a good place to start. So Wajeeha is joining us. She is our special guest today. We were trying to do this thing in one take. One take Frankie here, trying to just pressure me to bang out an episode in 30 minutes. So that's what we're doing. Before we get started, we need to talk about Sweet Sweat and sports research. So this podcast is presented by Sports Research. We love sports research. Wajeeha, do you exercise?
I do.
A lot, actually.
I have to work out at least 5 days a week for my mental sanity.
Okay, for how long?
45 minutes each.
Intense. And what do you do?
So I do a combination of weights and non-pandemic time. I'm a big spin cycle person, so I'll do at least 2 classes a week.
Okay.
And then I do weights a couple of times a week. Okay. And then the Stairmaster.
Shit, Wajeeha, that's a lot.
I need it for to stay sane. That's my Prozac.
Crazy. Yeah, I agree. It's like wine or exercise. Yeah, wine, Prozac, or exercise. Anyways, Sports Research would probably applaud that over Prozac or wine. They make a variety of products. They have an at-home workout kit, which we should send to Wajeeha. She would like that. It's free from a sponsor, which I think you would appreciate.
Yeah, 100%.
They make collagen. Do you take collagen?
I don't. I'm told I should.
Oh, really? I love collagen.
Do you drink it or do you apply it?
I don't think you can apply it.
Oh, okay.
But that would be amazing if you could. But I put a powder in my coffee.
Oh, the big.
I look like a 17-year-old trying to like bulk up on weights. I've got like the big black container on my counter. Anyways, I like that. Do you take a multivitamin?
No.
See, sports research is perfect for Wajeeha. If you, Wajeeha, go to sportsresearch.com and use code TOKEN, you can get 30% off.
I will do that.
Great.
I'm a CFO. I like discounts.
Yes, very much. The second thing, Wajeeha, because I know you like free, is that if you go to sportsresearch.com and put code NRC in, you can get a free stick of Sweet Sweat, which is a product that you apply to your troubled areas, not that you have any, and it increases circulation and you sweat like crazy. It's a great product and you get it for free. So you just put code NRC in and put your Sweet Sweat in your cart. So that's sportsresearch.com.
Great. I will do both of that today.
How do you think that ad read was?
Very good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Wajeeha. So, all right, Wajeeha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. So give us a sense of like who you are, where you're from, and how you got here.
I mean, Frankie said we only had a half hour, and where I'm from has a very long answer. So I have a very nomadic background. I started my career with an oil company and then moved to media a few years ago and loved it. I've been with Barstool now for 2.5 years.
Feels like 10 years.
It feels like 10 years. And, I have to color my hair now. So it really feels like a long time. Geography-wise, I have lived all over the world, literally. I was born in Jordan, raised in Pakistan, have lived in England, Australia, Singapore, and now New York. So that's in a nutshell where I'm from.
Okay, that's amazing. Where was your favorite place to live?
Sydney, Australia.
Okay, why?
The weather is beautiful, 350 days a year. And the people are very nice. They're a very good mix of people who work hard but then don't take themselves or life too seriously.
Okay, that's kind of a nice
And
balance.
I have a couple of best friends from Australia who I'm still in touch with.
Yeah. So Wajeeha, when Bill Beer, who's a recruiter out of San Francisco, Bill Beer is one of my favorites. Like he's the guy who like would just crack inappropriate jokes all the time. I love that about him. I don't mind an inappropriate joke at all. But anyways, he's the best. And Bill Beer, we had hired Bill Beer because we needed a CFO at Barstool. It was time, like things were just getting a little bit unruly. We weren't totally on top of the finances and needed to be, and we were priming up to do bigger and bigger things. And so Bill was like, I found this amazing woman who you have to meet. You're going to be like, why are you putting this person in front of me? She's not a stoolie. Like she doesn't know Barstool. She worked at an oil company. And I was like, okay, great, bring her in. And you were the first person I met with. And Bill did a great job prepping me for that conversation and clearly you for that conversation because you were so prepared. And he was like, just take the meeting, just take it as like a...
Give her a chance.
Just give her a chance and like, just set the benchmark. Like, here's one person. And it was so funny. After that meeting, I met with probably 15 different candidates, mostly men. And no one was as prepared or thoughtful as you, which I always loved. And I kept going back to like, ooh, they're just not as good as Wajeeha. They're just not as good as Wajeeha. So explain what a CFO does and then what is unique about being a CFO at a company like Barstool.
Okay, I'll start with the easier one first. So I would put a CFO's role in kind of 3 broad buckets. So there's the forward-looking role where it's sort of crystal balling and thinking about, okay, if this is the direction the business takes, what is the dollar and cent impact of it? So how much money are we going to make? How much are we going to have to spend? How long do we have to wait to see our investment, come back to us? So that's the forward-looking stuff. Then there is the rear view stuff, which is looking at how did we actually do and how have we done. It's important because I think unless you get that piece right, you can't really look forward. You have to know what's making money, what's not making money, how much are we spending, etc. And then the third piece is a big compliance piece, which is probably the least favorite, but in some ways the most important piece. So there are accounting rules that we have to follow. There are auditors that we have to answer to. There's the tax man who comes after us. And then any other stakeholders and shareholders. I mean, we're not a public company, so that part of it is a little bit easier, but we still have investors who want to make sure that, we're doing the right thing, we're following the rules, we're recording things properly, and really giving a sense of how well our business is doing. So those 3 parts are kind of a nutshell of what
great.
a CFO does.
And so let's go to the second part, which is tell us about that in this goat rodeo.
Yeah. I think the part that appealed to me and the reason why I was interested in the Barstool role was I could see the growth trajectory. I was intellectually and still am intellectually very curious about the digital business model where I had been in a bigger company where it was, okay, we're going to have millions of people coming to our site and we're going to make $1 from each person. Versus Barstool, which was, there is this universe of audience that we really care about and we're going to go deep with them. They're going to buy a merch, they're going to buy a subscription product, blah, blah, blah. So I was very curious to go from the wide to the deep model intellectually. I could also see that there were things to be done, and you came across as somebody during the interview process where you would give people a chance. You have high standards, but you give people a chance. And to me, it was like, okay, I could really set up this finance team, everything from the people to the systems to the processes. And it was sort of like a chance to do everything end to end.
Yeah, which is fun. Nothing really existed.
Yeah, or there were things there, but just needed to be tightened up and cleaned up.
Yeah.
So that part was interesting to me. And having come from big companies, I feel like I've seen things. I've seen how things should be done. I've seen things that shouldn't be done. And this was really my chance to implement that. I think what makes Barstool unique is it's a unique company and it's a talent-first company. So as a service function, I think every single day about how do I get what I need, but still be a good business partner. I can't enforce things. How in a big company, like there are rules that nobody can break. We can't do that here. So any solution that we find, whether it's our credit card practice or how we pay invoices, it has to be done in a Barstool way. Because you can't alienate the people, and ultimately you're trying to let the creative people be creative. You're trying to let the salespeople do what salespeople do. So you have to find a process that is still robust enough so that when I'm answering to the auditors, it's a good answer. But then it really supports the business.
I appreciate that. I think you've done an amazing job of that where I never liked really the finance side of our business. It's not that I don't like it. I like strategic. I like to understand at a high level how things are moving. I think I can have a very robust dialogue. I am not good at digging into a spreadsheet and understanding cell 32 or cell C in row 32. And I really always appreciated our partnership in that I knew there were some really good things happening. I, like you, spent the majority of my career in that world of, if we have millions of people and you make 50 cents or $1, that's a good business. And it's an interesting financial way of putting exactly what I love about this company, which is nobody thinks that way here. Everybody thinks about creation and what we can build and do, and it's all about serving this group of people, which is our audience, and how do we make money in a way that makes everybody feel good, and ultimately creates a long-term value for the brand, which is really important. And I think that's exactly what's missing in a bigger company, which is you're not thinking about people on either end of the spectrum. I think the other thing that's really different here, and I'd be curious about your perspective, is when I worked at big companies, it was really about headcount cost. Headcount cost versus revenue was always a huge, can we have less people to do the same thing? It's always, and I don't feel that we think about our company that way. I think we take a lot of risks. I think we're very conservative with our costs. I'd be curious to get your feedback. I think we are fairly tolerant of non-financial performance. In some cases, because it's good for the brand. In some cases, we've benefited from a wait and see approach. So while we're very fast with a lot of things, I feel that we are very slow and kind of nurturing about like, ooh, this thing isn't making money.
Right.
And I don't know how long we'll be able to do that. Like, that's one of the things I do think has to change with us, is that we are facing burnout. We have so many people doing so many things. Like, we're stretched so thin, and like the net of it is only some of them really break through on any level, finding audience, making money. And you sit in an interesting seat because it's ultimately like your ass is in the jackpot, where it's like, Wajeeha, why aren't we making money? Or,
I think exactly to your point. I think what you and Dave did really well in a very intuitive way, and I've seen during the pen transaction, I saw how Dave talks about these things, and he's not talking EBITDA margin or something, but just thinking about, okay, can we afford to do this, right? So when I came here, and I remember having this conversation with you where I was like, how much is our content costs? And is it really that low? So I think our base was very sensible, and it gave us time to let the revenue grow.
Yeah, that's right.
I had been in another place, I won't name names, where basically they grew the infrastructure and spent the money and thought the revenue would follow, and the revenue never came, right? With us, our base was small enough that we could take some of those risks, and then the revenue started coming in. Now we can afford those things. And to your point, we do certain things that make money, that help, keep the lights on and pay the bills, which allow us to take chances on some of the other things. And I think we're going to evolve and grow into a company where we're just going to have to keep that thinking forefront, right? And it will become that way as we get bigger.
Completely. Like, DNA-wise, if the content DNA is risk-taking, the financial DNA of this company is actually very low risk profile. Like, I always liked, when I got here, Dave and I really still to this day, to a degree, treat everything as though it is our own money.
Yeah.
And that's how Dave treated it. Dave was like, would I personally, Dave Portnoy, pay for this?
Right.
And that was the right way to look at it. At the end of the year, Wajeeha shines every year at the company meeting, where we basically shame people for how much they spend on stuff, which I feel like is your like crowning glory. Like, this much on Ubers, this much on travel booking changes, which is one of our most egregious costs. But the mantra of like, treat it like it's your own money. I think if people in companies treated things like it was their own money, companies would be better off.
Yeah.
Because when you become careless about the money, it actually shows a lack of care about the place.
Yeah.
So speaking of, like, you're a very strong woman. You are very successful. You're a C-level executive. there's people always talk about this, like women don't know how to manage money or women aren't good in finance. Like, what do you think about that? What are the things that you do to be successful either in your own financial life or in Barstool's financial life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say I probably had a little bit of an unfair advantage because I was always very numerate.
Okay.
So,
What's that mean? You can read numbers?
I mean, numbers always made sense to me.
Numerate. That's a great word, Wajeeha.
So, I was, and also,
I'm like what's the opposite of numerate?
I don't know. Frankie can look it up.
What is it when you can't read? No, if you
illiterate?
can't, you're illiterate. So you're illnumerate. I'm illiterate. Okay, go ahead.
My dad is an engineer, and at our dinner table, he used to be like, what's 24 times 32? So, we were just a family that I guess was just strong in numbers and always thought about numbers. Also, my parents were a little bit old-fashioned in the sense that, okay, if you made 10, then you can only spend less than 10. You can't spend more than 10, And I would say that that's something that I have in my personal life where I know at any given point in time what I'm choosing to spend my money on, and I'm doing it consciously. So it's not that I'm stingy, but it's just that I'm consciously deciding, okay, we're splurging on a holiday. And if we're splurging on a holiday, where am I going to hold back?
We're eating ramen.
Yes. It's a hard concept to explain to kids because I think when you grow up with like Uber on your phone and Starbucks on your, app somewhere, they just don't.
Money doesn't register.
It doesn't register. And I have a hard time explaining. I had this conversation with my daughter when she was graduating from 8th grade and she wanted 5 dresses. And I'm like, just because it's your graduation, my paycheck this month is not changing. Like, I still get the same amount of money. So either we have to start saving for it, right? Or we have to compromise somewhere else. And I probably overemphasize this point because this is so important to me. So I make it seem like they're like, are we poor? I'm like, well, we could be if we keep buying these dresses.
Completely, completely.
And I think I have the same approach with company money too, where, again, just being thoughtful. So, okay, if we want to do X, because this is really good for our audience, or this is good for our advertisers, or it's good for our employees, then where is the place that we can cut back,
Yeah, I like that. I like that you manage me that way, which is, I think that I work well in that scenario, which is we have 100.
Right.
You can use the 100 whatever way you want.
Right.
Do you want to use it here? Do you want to? And I like that. And I think that the more, we can empower our peers to think that same way. And I actually think that one of the things I really love here is just how respectful everyone is and considerate. And, it's hard to get people, one of the strange things about Barstool, which I'm sure you see, is that the acceleration of people's responsibility is very, very fast. I'm seeing it like on the manager side. I think it's true of finances and P&Ls where people who are like line video editors are now running 20-person teams when you have to start thinking about what's the budget of your team, what's your expenditure, how are you thinking about this as a business, and some people are not as numerate as you to be able to do that.
Right. I do think, though, I mean, I have some really strange conversations where people will say, I had to spend $5 extra than our, meal allowance because I was in this middle of nowhere place and that was the only place I could buy dinner. And I think people know, firstly, I like to believe that I lead by example. So people see that it's not like some people are splurging and some people are being held to rules. Yeah. And I will be the first one to follow the rules to show that it is possible to follow rules. And then because they see that I am fair, if they ever need to go above something, they will always come and tell me. And sometimes I'm like, you're talking about $5? Like, dude.
Completely.
I have now spent $15 having this conversation. Completely. I don't need to talk about $5. But I think people respect that. And I never, I sometimes push back on expense claims, or I'm like, tell me, who did you have dinner with? You said you had dinner with 3 people. I need the names listed here. And I never nobody is like an asshole about it. Like they understand where I'm coming from and why I'm asking the question, and they'll give me the context and they'll follow the rules. In fact, people want the rules because then they know
completely
where to, what the boundaries are.
And I think people appreciate, I think one of the things that's hard here is to be in a quote unquote service function because you're not in content. Your job isn't to go be funny or, be on camera. Like, and I'm always really sensitive to this because, your crew works really, really, really hard. They they are short staffed. They work hard. They have crazy hours. And they, their jobs aren't that different than a job at a, washing machine company or another media type company or, so I'm always sensitive to, like, I always feel like I can do a better job of, like, how do we make people who work in functions that aren't crazy different and unique, how do we make them feel that they have all the benefit of working at this kind of place? Like, I think the pandemic from like a morale perspective, I think the pandemic will be the worst for people who have like very normal, like standard functions where the special part of your job is being with other people or being in proximity to, in our case, content. And when you're home alone and you're staring at spreadsheets and expense reports, or you're trying to build a P&L, like it just becomes a P&L.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a moment last week where there were two people on my team and, there's a whiteboard behind my desk because I like writing on the whiteboard. And they were brainstorming something and scribbling on the whiteboard. And I literally had tears in my eyes. It just felt like this is what normal life looks like. Yeah. And people, it's probably something boring that they were like brainstorming, but just that human element of it. And feeling like you're part of something bigger rather than just sitting at your dining table and doing that.
Completely. So. And I think the human element of finances, which I think you've done a really good job of, which is, look, money is intimidating. You pay people's paychecks every week. Like you are a formidable character here. But being approachable and being reasonable and being explanatory about like, hey, here's why we're doing this. Like I always find, like we had a meeting with one of the podcasts this week and, there's 3 hosts plus a producer. And I'm like, you guys are in the red. Yeah. Like this show is not making money. And not in a punitive way, just in like, what are we going to do about it? Yeah. Like, what are we going to do about this? Yeah. And we're in it together. And I feel that like in a big company and media in general, like I was just reading before we got on here about, Warner Media being sold to Discovery. And it's going to be super interesting. AT&T bought it for $80+ million. I think
3 years ago.
85, 3 years ago. Now they're getting 43 million. So like, first of all, what are you saying in that situation? You're like, what the fuck, right? Yeah. Okay, that's what I think. So I think it's ridiculous for stock. And then the second piece, though, is that Jason Kilar, who is the CEO of Warner Media, was in the dark.
I know. And then they keep talking about the Discovery CEO, and they keep mentioning his brownstone. I don't know if you've noticed this. They mentioned it in Wall Street Journal.
Parties in the Hamptons and the brownstone. It's
funny. Like, what's the significance of this brownstone, and why does that keep coming up?
I think he's the highest paid CEO in the world, media CEO in the world. I mean, David Zaslav, I think, makes hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I think the interesting thing with that whole...
Why can't I make that, Wajeeha? No,
you will. Soon. We're on that trajectory. Yeah. You will soon. I think the interesting part of it, when you've been working in the corporate world long enough, you see that these things go in cycles, right? So there's consolidation, and then there's deconsolidation, and there's centralization and decentralization. And I feel like, Verizon combining its assets, AT&T, Warner Media, and now they're all like separate.
Completely.
The divorce is happening.
Everybody aggregated, bought. And then it's like, ooh, wait, I know nothing about running a studio. Wait, I know nothing about running a media company.
I was very intrigued by their content budget of $20 billion.
I know, it's amazing.
I'm like, that could save a few countries, but
that's right. Why do that? Why not compete with Netflix? I'm going to do an ad read now, Frankie. How's that? All right. So Wajeeha, while we are talking about a $20 million...
Billion.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. That's insane.
Yeah.
$20 billion
content budget for the combined entity.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, how much content are we going to create and watch?
Nobody's watching.
Yeah.
All right. So do you trade stocks?
Not really.
Do you buy crypto?
No.
Because it's too risky.
It's too risky. It's too volatile.
Okay. Like, not for you.
Not for me. I'm very risk averse, even in my personal investing.
I actually like that about you. I'm not. So I spent the entire weekend trying to figure out how to buy Safe Moon, which I will tell you is an utter shit show and even got me nervous. So I was like, I will not be going on to like the Pancake Exchange and this, that, and the other thing to buy Safe Moon, even though my guy Dave Portnoy loves it, and no, he is not getting paid to do it. But anyways, what I do think is safe is trading with Blockfolio.
Okay.
So Blockfolio, world's most popular mobile app. They're a huge partner for Barstool Sports. We've been so excited to have Blockfolio come on with us. You can buy and sell Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and other tokens with zero fees. And you get a free coin with every trade over $10. You would like that, yeah? Yep. You can go to blockfolio.com today to download their app. So great service, very safe, great way to trade crypto. If you were going to trade crypto, would you use
Blockfolio?
That's right. That's what I thought. All right, great. So that's Blockfolio. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, you were intrigued by my fasting recently.
I was, and I'm glad you brought this up because I am always hesitant to ask people personal questions, but I am fascinated by Wajeeha. So, so Wajeeha, just to set the stage for this, is Wajeeha comes into my office the other day. This was probably a week ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, a week ago. And she looks like she's dragging, like just dragging.
So you offered me apricots.
I offered Wajeeha some apricots, and she was like, no thanks. I don't know why I had apricots. And I also there were a lot of people here who'd never had apricots. Gaz had never had apricots. I think it's weird when people put their fingers in the same thing. So I made a strategic decision that I was going to offer you guys the apricots and never touch them again. Okay. Because once you guys touched them, then I couldn't touch them again. So I was like self-sacrificing. But you really looked like you needed a snack.
I needed something.
So I was like, Wajeeha, God, I was like, shit, either we're having a bad month, like somebody got in trouble, the salespeople have like put Wajeeha over the edge officially, end of story. But no, you were like, I'm fasting. So tell us about the fast.
So I'm Muslim. And while I'm not super practicing, one of the things that is important to me is the month of fasting. So it happens once a year for 30 days, sunrise to sundown, no food, no water. There is a sort of a spiritual part to it. It's meant to strengthen our relationship with God because food and water, which are basic needs and are allowed, we sacrifice that because that's the sacrifice God asks us to make. It's also meant to make people more empathetic. So when you experience hunger and thirst, then you feel the need of so many people in the world who have less than you. So it's something that I've been doing as
your entire life.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't always do the 30 days, so it depends on what else is going on in my life. But I think I grew up in a country where that was the norm. So it's just one of those things where if I don't do it, I feel very guilty.
Yeah, you just feel off.
Yeah,
like this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think more than the food and water, the sleep deprivation gets to me because I wake up at pre-dawn to have a mug of coffee because the caffeine withdrawal would be really bad for me. And then when I've had a mug of coffee at 4 a.m, I can't go back to sleep. So I've basically been up since 4 o'clock. And that lasts a whole month.
Okay. And so 2021, you're like, I'm going for the full 30.
Yep.
I
did 28. I missed 2, but yeah.
Jesus,
I know.
All right.
I know.
So I'm going the full 28.
Right.
You're going 98.3% there. And your children don't do it. You do it. Your parents do it.
Yes.
Do you go to service?
I don't. I pray at home.
You pray at home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I pray during the month more than I normally pray.
Okay. And do you have what is the experience of praying?
Yeah, so I mean it's very kind of simple. You have to do it at set times of the day. So it's 5 times a day. You just have to face Mecca and you say your prayers and it takes like a few minutes. I think I'm at that.
How do you know where Mecca is in your apartment?
It's northeast, and usually when you move in, you take a compass and you
find the spot. Okay, got it. Yep.
I think in general, I'm sort of at that point in my life where it's like my stool has 4 legs. So it's physical well-being, it's mental well-being, it's emotional well-being, and it's spiritual well-being. Yep. So I'm trying to, I don't always do a good job of it, but I try to find balance, which as a working professional and a mom, it's hard to do.
Yep.
But this is sort of how I get my spiritual sustenance, if you like.
Yep. I love that. I went through recently with a girlfriend. I was like, I'm going to have a 5-point plan, which is kind of similar where I think you have to nurture a small circle. So the people who are very close to you, like really focus on a small circle versus a big C.
Yep.
And I think that that's as you get older, you appreciate that. The second is, to believe in something bigger, like the spirituality, whether it's fasting or praying or whatever it is you believe in. The third was physical well-being, which I think is just so, I think it's really important for women in general.
Yep.
I think it gets so much harder the more stress you put on yourself and the more obligations you give yourself. Like, I think that's what's so hard for women at work is that we're just kind of geared towards over delivering. Like there's some insecurity in any woman I've ever worked with that is like, I've got to work harder than
you have to work harder. You feel you have to work harder at work, and then you go home, and then you feel you have to do
your second
there.
job, right? So then you're like, okay, and I've taken on a family and this, that, or the other thing. It's just hard. You're just obliged, and I think that it's the airline mask.
Yeah,
and I think Michelle Obama always said this, which is like, you got to put the airplane mask on yourself first. And that's a really sounds very straightforward, but I feel like that's the last place women put the mask. And then I think the other two, my other two was, I really want to execute well. I want to execute my work well. I just want to execute well. How many was that? Was that 5? This is why I'm not the CFO of this company.
That's why you're not numerate.
Yeah, that's why I'm not numerate. All right, so it was ish in that area. Got me to 100%. But I think the legs of the stool are a great way to look at it. And I think you can also think about that. We have the legs of the stool of this company, right? We have the lines of business that we're in. We have the functions that people have, and we have the priorities that we share. And I think your role in this is really important because you hold a lot of those things together and hold each one of them accountable. And, I think one of the interesting things about Barstool is that it is a very decentralized place. It is a disconnected, decentralized place. Like I was explaining to someone this morning, like we're running the Classic Golf Tour, and it's like those guys are gone for 11 months a year. Like I will never see Lisa Litt back. I think in 2021. And you forget about it, but it's happening, and there's costs accruing, and there's revenue being made, and you have to have an eye towards all the pieces, which I think takes a special. It's a hard job. It's a special job.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's so cool that I remember Classic was one of the first things that I came across when I started at Barstool. It was like we were discussing this idea, and then before we knew it, it turned into a whole tournament. The fund was another example where it's an idea one day, and then before you know it, it's turned into a thing. So I think it's, to your point, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also fun, and it's accelerated learning. It's like
tuition.
What you do in like 2 years, in another place it would take 10 to get that kind of experience. Right. And when I'm hiring for my team, you can tell some people embrace it and love it, and it energizes them, and then some people, it's just a lot. Like,
it's too much.
It's too much for them.
Yeah, it's hard. I often feel bad, like when the fund. Like fund is a perfect example. We do the fund, and we're like, okay, we're gonna figure it out. Like we're gonna figure out. And sometimes I feel bad in our relationship where I'm like, shit, Wajeeha lives in, when I'm like, we'll figure that part out. Like, you live in the figure it out department, and you're like, there's tax implications here, and there's, corporate implications here.
Or just like I remember Christmas Eve. I mean, I don't celebrate Christmas, so it wasn't such a big deal for me.
Thank God.
But on Christmas Eve, I was looking at financials of all these different small businesses. They all look like, all of the statements look different. Some of them are handwritten, where I'm like, what do you pay your people? Like, what is your rent? And I'm calling people, trying to make sure that, their numbers made sense. And we had done our due diligence before we paid them, right? And I knew that Dave had promised that they would get their money soon. So there's this time pressure as well. So
that was amazing. You did an amazing job. All right. So thank you for doing this. That was wonderful.
Of course.
I appreciate it. We have a one good thing. All right, Wajeeha, you are my one fucking good thing today. Do you have a one good thing you want to share? Could be a piece of advice, could be something you're excited about.
I think I'm excited about growth. I think I've been in companies that are either in decline or stagnated. And I think all the problems or challenges that we have, they're all growth related. They're all leading to a bigger, better place. So if you can keep your eye towards that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what we're doing that's difficult today, you know that you're going to be better. The company's going to be better. The company's going to be more successful. And when the company's more successful, we're all going to be more successful. And that's what energizes me and keeps me going.
That's amazing. So cheers to that. One good thing is brought to you by High Noon. So High Noon has a bunch of new flavors. I do not recommend doing finance while having High Noons. Do you agree with that?
Yep, agree.
Okay,
100%.
Don't drink in Spreadsheet. High Noons, though, 100 calories, taste great, gluten-free. They're amazing. New flavor set. I'm going for the mango. Do you drink?
I do.
Do you like High Noon?
I have never tried.
Oh, really? You can say that here. It's okay.
Okay, all right. I feel like I have not tried a lot of the things that we are talking about. So
well, that actually would be a very good show if we made Wajeeha try all the products. We have like, hey, Wajeeha, here's some dude wipes. Like, here's some 3Chi.
Right. Maybe we start with the 3G and then I can try our other products.
All right. Anyways, well, Wajeeha, I will get you some High Noon. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
That's it for the episode. You can follow us at Token CEO. You can follow me at EKA Nardini. We're on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You're supposed to watch this on YouTube, and we did it in one take. So that's it for today, and we'll see you back here Tuesday.